15,000 people. There's the quagmire, there's stanchions, there's cops, you know, directing traffic, and all this hoopla over, you know, goofy Howie Mandel's show that happens to be playing in the vicinity. And my wife just goes, "Wow, look at that. What are you thinking?" And the truth, this is what I was thinking. I was thinking, you know, this is a city of 10 million people. So 9,984,000 people aren't here.
That's what you're thinking. Oh, that's so perfect. You're a perfect comedian, right?
I don't know if that's a perfect comedian, but I'm always saying that, you know, what is fame? Fame is just the people who know you, but as many people as there are that could possibly know you, that is so trumped by the amount of people who don't know you, don't care, maybe even know you and dislike you. Yeah. You know, so I'm always I err on that side. So
when I say that, I mean, here you have this great moment of all these people showing you affection, and you somehow turn it around into, I mean, it's the ultimate glass half empty, right? I mean,
I think that I don't know if that's most people, but that's me, and that's every comedian I talk to. Like, also in the same show, you know, I told a story in my book a few years back, but and all my comedian friends say the same thing. You know, I'm doing really well. You know, I'm on stage in the midst of these waves of laughter and acceptance and love and whatever. There's one guy up front that is making absolutely no eye contact, no smiles, nothing. Looks like he was dragged there. Looked like some sort of punishment for him that, you know, he had to do this. And the whole show became about that guy, you know, in my own head. Like, I could have ignored that and just enjoyed and wallowed in the basked in the sunshine of laughter I was getting. But I stopped the show. And I went, just give me a second here, because I do stream of consciousness, so it just, I can't control what I say and what I do, and we'll talk about that after. But I just went, you, the guy in the blue sweater, you're not looking at me, you're not reacting to me, you're even looking the other way. I mean, front row, you know, and it's really, what's your problem? What is your problem? And the lady sitting next to him mouths to me, "He's blind."
Oh,
right. And like an idiot, because I don't think, you know, my knee-jerk reaction, nobody probably heard it. I went, "He's blind." And at the same time as I gasped and my heart dropped into my stomach, you can hear 7,000 people going, "Oh my God." I mean, I just lost the whole room right there. And I'm thinking, oh, I just sunk into the depths of whatever the depth is, you know, I'm in the depth. And then it was just, but these are the shining moments and then I just said, you know, I couldn't escape it, but I was just saying, I just said really quickly, I just said, "Can I ask a question?" And she goes, "Go ahead." I said, "Why the hell would you spend money to buy a front row ticket for a blind man? You could have given the blind man back in the balcony. You could have saved yourself half the money. Told him. You could have lied to him. Told him he was in the front. It would have been a better night for him. It would have been the same night for him. It would have been a better night for me." And that got the audience back, and but it could have also plummeted me to more depths. But
yeah. Howie, when did you last do a stand-up set? What year?
What do you mean, what year? This year. Then that's the other thing. So that's fame, you know, that I still do 100 live dates a year.
Oh my God. See, I got to tell you, I mean, I saw you in the 80s, and then I followed you as an actor, and then I followed you onto TV, and I didn't know you did a lot of stand-up still, and I apologize.
So that's the thing that takes me back to the beginning. That's the thing about fame. Fame is, what do you know? You know, when I started as a stand-up, I garnered a nice audience as a stand-up, and the biggest. I started on a show called Make Me Laugh, but then I did a young comedian special in '81, and the other young comedians who were these burgeoning kids that were gonna hopefully make it one day on my special, it was me, and it was Richard Lewis, and it was Jerry Seinfeld, and it was Harry Anderson, and it was hosted by the Smothers Brothers at the Roxy in Sunset, and that kind of catapulted me to, you know, notoriety.
Howie, can we do something that my editors hate me doing, but I kind of like to do, which is, so that set, that was the one, I think I have it right here. Can I just show that for a second so people?
Yeah.
again, they hate me doing this. They're like, that is technically technologically one of the stupidest things you can do, because I have to hold my laptop in front of the phone. But you know, it's Instagram. It's not perfect, right? There's the map room. So let's get you going.
Wow.
Here, right?
We didn't plan this. I just said this.
From Canada, an off-the-wall comedian.
Off the wall.
Howie Mandel. Let's hear it.
I love how they put the,
Drum.
the go. Yeah.
Hip.
Look at that guy. That's the guy I used to know.
What?
What? I just got a weird feeling in my ass.
Does this make you uncomfortable or no?
Yeah, a little bit, but is that no? I'm
So
okay
that
with
guy.
it.
All right. So
I feel like I have to explain it, but I will explain it.
explain that guy to us, okay? I'm going to take off the map. I'm going to get back to my head. Sorry.
Okay. So this is part of who I am, and we can delve further into that. But, I've always, now I've been open about it, but I've always suffered from OCD, ADHD, anxiety, depression. But one of the issues, are you pointing at me? One of the issues.
Look, I honestly, I'm 49 years old, and stuff pops up on my phone all the time. I'm sure I could turn it off. I don't know how, so I just let it pop up, and then I'd get rid of it so I can see you.
Are you practicing for something you have to tell your wife a little later? I don't know how this got on my phone.
No, so it's purely a work phone. That's disgusting. Oh. No, all right, I'm continuing. Yeah, sorry.
So anyway, part of the issues that I deal with, but it's also part of my personality, is the inability to think of ramifications. My knee-jerk reaction is, okay, and I always just jump, and I love it. It's actually kind of served me like Nike, just do it without any thought. And that's how I got my whole career. So in the mid 70s or the late 70s, when disco was all the rage, I'm not a dancer. I'm not a drinker. I don't play sports. I don't gamble. I didn't have a poker game. I didn't even have friends. I went to this club, Yuck Yucks, because there was nothing else to do. And I'd never seen stand-up live.
This is in Toronto, right?
Toronto, Canada.
Yeah.
And I went to see the show, and the host, Mark Breslin, after the show said, and we have at midnight or whatever, he said, if you feel like you have this skill or this is something you can do, we host an amateur hour or whatever it was. And somebody sitting at my table went, you should go up. I went, okay, I'll go up. And thinking, no thinking, no prep, no.
You had no routine. You had no.
No, I'm not. I wasn't.
Down.
Nothing. And I didn't aspire to be in, I'm from, Toronto. There's nobody I know in show business. It's ridiculous to think that I could even be in show business. I wasn't in school plays. It was nothing I aspired to be. But I thought the joke would be, because I always go, okay, they go over there, touch that, put your finger in the socket. Okay, I'll do that. And I go, why did you tell me to do that? But so I said, okay, if I had to analyze, I thought that's the joke. I'm not a comedian. I'm just going to get up and I'm going to have somebody say, ladies and gentlemen, Howie Mandel. And that's funny. And then this goofball will just get up on stage. Needless to say, Mark Breslin says, ladies and gentlemen, Howie Mandel. And I walk out and I'm not a comedian. And then I realize, well, there's no joke to this. Who's the joke on? The joke's on me. This is stupid. And then I look out. If you've ever been on stage, I'm blinded by the spotlight. And I look in the front, and there's faces of strangers who are just sitting there, waiting. Like, okay, do something. And for whatever reason, my adrenaline started pumping. Fear started, my analogy of what I do in comedy is I like thrill rides. And the scarier it is, and the higher it is, and the closer to death I believe I'm coming, the better it is. I just like that. That makes you want to go on again. If you just were going in a straight line, it would just be boring. So I just became fearful, realized that these people were waiting for something. I had nothing. So out of that fear, and this young guy on stage, I'm 23 years old, I start going, okay. All right, okay. All right. And while I was doing that, they could sense my nervousness that I had nothing. I'm just going, okay, let me come. Okay. And they start giggling. And I didn't really, and I go, what? Tell me what, and I'll do that. Okay, all right. And then I put my hands in my pockets, and we'll talk about this a little. But I've always been a germaphobe, and I've always had OCD. I carried latex rubber gloves because I didn't want to touch things. So I had a glove in my pocket, and out of nothing to do, I just pulled it over my head and over my nose, and I started breathing, and the fingers were going up. And
watch this, Howie. Look at that thing. That guy.
Wow.
Right?
That's it. And it popped off my head, and they applauded, and I said, good night. And I walked off the stage, and Mark says to me, you got to come back tomorrow night. And I go, why? He goes, that was great. I go, what was it? What was it? And that was the beginning of my career. And I started hanging out. And to be totally honest with you, I would have been thrilled. You know, I didn't have a lot of friends. I would have been thrilled to show up 2-3 times a week at Yuck Yucks and not have, you know, this was just the first time that, you know, I didn't have a lot of friends. I was kind of weird and awkward and little and nobody.
Howie, I want to ask you something about that set. So one thing that startled me is, and we're going to talk about this now. You have, is it misophobia, which is a intense fear of germs, or rational fear of germs? You tell me.
That's part of. I have OCD,
yeah.
And misophobia, I guess, is I've only read it. I don't know. You know, germs for me, or just a handshake, on the hand is a trigger.
But Howie, you during that set, it was startling to me. You know this. You fell onto the floor and dropped down with your hands touching the stage. And I'm watching that going, oh my God, what's going through his head? But you
nothing
soldiered through it.
So here's the thing, you know, and throughout the many years, you know, I did shake hands, and I did at times when my OCD, when my obsessive compulsive disorder, people always come up to me and they go, oh, I've got a little OCD. Well, you can't have a little, you either have OCD or you don't have OCD. OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, is my thoughts aren't any different than anybody else's thoughts. I mean, they are. I do have obtrusive thoughts and rituals and things that I have to do, but I'm talking about specifically the germs. When I am triggered, you know, if I shook somebody's hand, like you might be out in public and shake somebody's hand, and then they have like a sweaty hand, you go, oh, or you saw them sneeze 10 minutes before and they covered their mouth, and then they extended their hand, and you wanted to be polite, so you extended your hand and you shook their hand. You go, oh my God, this guy's snot is all over my hand. Which would be the same thought as anybody else. I would run into the bathroom. I'd wash my hands like anybody else. And then I'd walk away and I'd go, I didn't get it all. I don't think I got it all. I don't think I hit and I go back in and I wash my hands even more. And then I'd go back out and I'd go, oh my God, I probably didn't use the water. It wasn't hot enough. And then I'll do the scalding water and I'll do it. And I could get caught in that loop of having to wash my hands, you know, hundreds of times, so much so that it will, you know, stop my life. I can't move on. I'm stuck at the sink for hours and hours and hours. By the same token, I've done things like that where you don't think your door's locked and you go back and you check. Everybody does that, but not 100 times. And not.
I mean, you've had to turn. I mean, I think I remember this wonderful report that David Muir did on you. I think it was on 2020, where your wife said that your daughter, like her shoes, like hit your leg.
In a car, we were on our way to the airport, and it touched it, and you know, my mind just stuck on that. Like, honestly, and this is what is more debilitating, because intellectually, I understand that what's going on in my head is making no sense. It's the same sense, like if you were in a car and somebody touched the bottom of their foot to your pants, you might go, oh, like there's a scuff mark. It's normal. But I can't get my mind, it's triggered me, and I couldn't get my mind off of that. Oh, what's in the bottom of her shoe? Now it's on my pants. And what if my elbow touches my pants? I made them turn the car all the way around and go home. And they did. They accommodated, just because they realized that the hell that they'd have to go through if they didn't, or that I would go through. Eventually, it was so bad that, you know, my wife, it might have been even, well, no, it was before that, you know, said, I can't do this anymore. This is just too hard. You either have to go get help. And that kind of saved my life. You know, I've
watched these people, you know, I've seen a couple of these on the internet. People who thought it was funny to shake your hand, you know, like Rob Schneider did that. Right.
Mm-hmm,
and
right.
Marshall Falk, the football star.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so odd to me, and you'll tell me if this is a bad analogy, but it's kind of like if you went to somebody who had an issue with alcohol and you spiked their drink and they were a little drunk and you said, oh, you said you stopped drinking 12 years ago. Well, look what I did, buddy. I mean, I watched those and I just thought, that's not funny. And it's really
not,
just
but
nasty.
Well, but here's what I'll chalk it up to, and this is my little soapbox. You know, I've gone to Capitol Hill to speak about it. You know, my whole soapbox is mental health. You know, and I think that there are two things that stand in the crossroads of, you know, even moving forward, and that is, number one is the stigma. You know, is so people don't talk about it because there is a stigma connected to mental health, which I believe that there isn't anybody alive at some point that isn't going to need, you know, guidance, a coping skill. And whether that coping skill is just, I go to a meditation class, or I need to work out, or I need to, you know, you don't have to be, I'm probably not the best spokesperson for it because I've been diagnosed, you know, so they're going, I don't have OCD or I don't have that. But if you're a human, there is no human alive that doesn't need help. And I believe that if we took care of our mental health the way we took care of our dental health, even when nothing's bothering you, you go get an x-ray and you go, look, mom, no cavities. How come it's not part of our curriculum as a 5-year-old in school, where there isn't somebody in place, not the school nurse, which isn't just a lady who gave you a Band-Aid for everything, but there's somebody in place that can ask questions and see whether your responses are conducive to healthy reactions to life. That doesn't exist. That's why when I'm looking at even what's happening in the world, I believe that mental health is the answer. It really is.
Well, Howie, I just want to ask you, you know, I've got a few more pictures here. I want to ask you this. Did you really show up to America's Got Talent dressed like this?
Yeah.
And was that because you felt you needed that to go? Because this was before.
No, you know,
tell me about this thing.
You know, listen, I have that. And I was nervous. You know, when we were doing America's Got Talent, we started pre-pandemic, and it's airing pre-pandemic with a full audience. Then when it started and they started shutting down, we were still operating when the NBA was shut down, and they said we couldn't have an audience. I was nervous, and that's just the picture before that I showed up. I told this story before. I just want to clear up the last answer. So what I was just saying, that people don't understand mental health. So I don't what Rob did and Marshall Falk did, it doesn't exist in our world. They think it's a joke. If you can't see it, you don't go up to somebody with canes and trip them. But you could see canes. You can't see this. So they think.
I remember going, I went to read Howard Stern last year in person, and it was like really exciting for me because I'm a big admirer. And I went in, and the first thing I did was I was ready to not shake his hand, right? And he came and he stuck his hand out. And then it was maybe one of the most awkward things, because I was ready for that elbow bump, I think maybe a fist bump or something. So my fist met his hand, and I realized maybe he's in his own head thought, I'm going to do this because we're in a professional situation and we're going to go through this. But I would never joke about that. And it's just interesting to me that somebody would hear about what you went through and think, hey, that would be pretty funny. But you're more forgiving than I am, I guess, you know?
Because I don't think people understand it. And my key is, you know, is just to understand that it really is debilitating. It really stops my life. It really is. If you're familiar with but if your viewers are familiar with the Howard Hughes story, you know, here's a guy who had everything at his fingertips, and his last years of his life were spent naked in the fetal position, peeing into a bottle alone in a room. I promise you, I am that close at any
No,
given
you're not.
to be that guy. No. So if I'm triggered, I'm not exaggerating. If I'm triggered, it could be that bad. And you know, my wife said, you better get help because you're going to lose your family. You know,
is getting help. Is that therapy? Is it medication? What is that exactly?
All of the above. You know, whatever it takes. You know, I don't talk specifically about what I take, but I am medicated and I am in therapy, and I am supported by, you know, a loving, supportive family and friends. But whatever it takes. And the first step is just this conversation that I'm having with you is something that needs to be had. I would imagine that any of those people, if they were watching something like this, if Rob Schneider, who I know and I love and I think is a great guy, if he'd be watching this and hear me articulate it this way, or Marshall Falk, they wouldn't do that. But they didn't hear that. They heard everybody, you know, just like, and again, I add to the humor of it. I'll show up in a hazmat suit. I get it. I'm a comedian. I'll tell you something. For me, laughter and comedy is my panacea. Is my bridge to survival, is my bridge to success. That is what I need to do. And I need to joke about it, and I need to have fun, and I need to laugh. Otherwise, I'll just cry, get naked, and pee in a bottle and lock myself in a room.
Howie, you were mentioning how this is not an easy time. And again, I feel like it's like, how many times can I say how lucky we are, you know? But whatever, for some reason, some days you wake up and you feel great. And then today I got up at 4:30. I think I'd been watching, you know, what was going on in Minneapolis on the TV too late. I'm also, you know, my daughter went through graduation and her 18th birthday without any of that normal stuff. And you wake up and you go, oh, like, how do we move on through this, you know? And it's a pretty bad feeling. And I'm wondering how you, in a situation where you can be triggered in just normal life, you have to eventually face the idea of going back on stage. You have to face the idea of going out of the house, right? How do we cope at a moment like this when we don't know anything about what's going on?
Because you know, my coping skill, and I think it's a coping skill that could adhere to anybody, is the power of now. You know, it's like right now, especially as somebody who suffers from OCD. OCD is, you're triggered to think, if I didn't, you know, if I don't wash my hands, I could get sick. Or I remember that I had the flu last year and I don't want to go through that again. But if you live in the now, if you can really focus on just this second, you and I are, you know, having a nice conversation. In this particular second, our families are safe and healthy. We're having a good time. I don't want to think about what happened yesterday or what I'm about to see on TV when I get off of this. If I could just get from moment to moment, and that's all it is, and that's the only reality we have. You know, even what happened to you before, you may think it's your reality. It's your perception of how it came down. Ask two people in the same place what happened yesterday, and the stories will vary. In fact, read two newspapers about the exact same thing, you know, and it's like two different planets. So what I'm saying is, what is real to everybody who's on here right now is now. And that's how I get through each and every moment. Even when something's scary, as soon as that's gone from my vision, I just need to focus on now.
And, you know, that's why I started this thing. And I convinced the Washington Post to give me, I mean, I don't know what I'm doing, but I said, hey, give me your Instagram account and I'll run this thing. And we'll just call interesting people up and talk to them. And it's so wonderful on Tuesday and Friday. I wake up and I know, oh, Howie Mandel. Okay, think about Howie. And it's like 3 hours of thinking about you. I'm sorry, I don't want to creep you out. And then you're on there. And we just get to have a normal conversation for 59 minutes because Instagram Live only works for that long. But it is a great relief. And I do think if you don't have a little distraction or focus or an idea or a mission almost, it's really hard to get caught up in the moment in a bad way, you know?
But that, you know, all those, you should make a t-shirt, distraction, and all those words you used are the stepping stones to a happy, productive life. You know, you need to be distracted, you need to be motivated, you need to have, I can't remember what the other words were, but they worked for me.
They were good words. I mean, they were excellent words. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey, can we take a few? Can I pop up a few questions? And, you know, I don't know if you've opened questions on Instagram Live, but sometimes they're not really questions. It'll just say like, "Make America Great Again" or Steve Harvey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what advice do you have for non-socially distancing people that don't have OCD? Oh my God, I don't even know who those people are. But what advice would you have?
Non-socially distancing. Well, right now, social distancing is it's not even for you. It may be, you know, you could be an asymptomatic person. My advice is, if you're non-social distancing, then you don't, you know, the one word that is missing, I think, from our society is respect. you know, and that is the ultimate in respect, you know, social distancing, even what's happening in, you know, in the news right now in Minneapolis. I mean, we don't respect our fellow man, our fellow human being, our fellow, you know, we're always, you know, everything is about respect. I believe everything is about respect. And whether you respect somebody's space, whether you respect their health, whether you worry, let's worry about the people surrounding us almost as much, if not more, than worrying about ourselves. Nothing taught me that more than becoming a parent, you know?
Yeah.
And becoming a parent is a great kind of template for how we should treat the world. You should treat the rest of the world like you are raising these children, like you are raising these children, like you are, the way you feel about your children is the way you, well, you may not love them as much and you don't want to change them when they crap themselves. But that being said, you know, I think just having respect and love for people is what is missing. And that's how.
Do you find, Howie, when you're looking at the same things we're seeing, is it startling to you to see people who are, you know, masks have become a political thing? Whether you wear a mask or not.
Startled right now because I'm watching on your feed now and people are saying Corona is fake. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
Like, why is that? Like,
well, that person just said Karina is not fake. So hopefully that's
Karina's probably his wife.
Yeah.
Karina's his wife, and Corona is fake. I mean, how do you fake 100,000 deaths? How do you fake that? Like, it's
we're in a weird, you know, we have a motto at the Washington Post now, democracy dies in darkness, which was launched a couple of years ago. And I think the idea is we used to argue about stuff and we'd have opinions in our country. And now we actually can't agree on what the actual facts are. And that's where it's much harder. There are just two groups of people out there. I mean, two, I don't know. But there are groups of people out there who just don't believe a fact is correct. Well,
that's because when I started in the business, I'm a lot older than you, but you were around when I was doing the business. You know, your media. So, you know, and a credentialed media. But when social media became the, you know, you're a guy who works for the New York Post and
Washington Post, for God's sakes.
Washington, I'm sorry.
Let me show you.
Washington. I was reading. It's right in the back. So,
this is our. Remember this guy? I'm sorry, you won't be. I'll flip it around. This is Ben Bradley. Remember him? Yeah.
I can't see the. Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was never monkey with the truth. That's what he said.
Right.
And our current editor is the great Marty Barron. You know, right? Yeah. I know it's a little creepy that I have their heads on a board in my barn, but you know, whatever.
You're big on show and tell. You got pictures and notes along with everything.
Well, I'm stuck here, Howie. I'm stuck in a barn in Concord, Massachusetts, and I'm just trying to make the best of it. Normally, I'm on the road reporting, you know. But I'm sorry. You can take
my point is,
the New York Post has good headlines, you know.
I'm sorry, Washington Post, but I'm saying you're a bona fide member of the media, and that was media. And now the media could possibly be, and they could start a story, some lonely guy in his underpants sitting in his apartment on his bed, you know, tweeting or doing, but that starts a snowball effect. So that's why, you know, where people get their information, you know, how many times have you talked to somebody? Well, maybe they don't say it to you, but they go, you know, I just read this thing that said, well, what did you read? They used to say, I read the Washington Post. No, I read this thing online. Well, what did you read?
Right.
What is it? You know, it's this guy, Gary. He said that that's not true. And that's the problem. The problem is, what is media? Media used to be a profession. Just because I tweet, I'm not media. I'm not the media, you know, or the, you know, news.
But so if you're an influencer, I'm going to use that word. The kids use that word. If you're an influencer and you've got, you know, 18 million followers, and you decide to float out there a picture that may be, you know, doctored or altered, and people share that, something that is true, right? I mean, even we're seeing this. I think there was a picture that came up. One of the police officers who was involved. I think it was the police officer who actually had his knee on the neck of George Floyd. There's a picture of him in a hat that says "Make America White Again," which I guess is a fake hat.
Right.
or is a fake picture in some way. And I saw all sorts of people who I admire tweeting out that picture because they didn't know any better, right?
That's my point right there. You know, that's you become an influencer with fake, and how scary and how powerful that is. You know, the first influencer of not our times, but maybe one generation earlier with bad information was Adolf Hitler. You know, and
Yeah.
people bought into that, and they had a solution. I'm
Well,
lucky to be.
Howie, what do you do to offset that, or is there no solution, or what? I mean, I just believe that we, one reporter at a time, in the Washington Post and the New York Times, I think also, we work hard we're very particular about what we report, and we just work hard to try to do our job right, you know. But I mean, what is the answer?
That is the answer is you can only be you, and you can't be you know, you there's nothing you can do. You're powerless, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but I think if each person is honest and truthful and respectful, and you can't control somebody else, then that'll maybe change the narrative. But there's a lot of unhappy, sick, uninformed people out there that are spreading. That's what is racism? Racism is just ignorance. It's just, what is it? You know, I don't really, you know, I grew up in the 50s in Canada, you know, and it wasn't part of our upbringing. You know, I remember seeing on TV the news, the Detroit riots and things like that. It wasn't part of our community or anything we really talked about. I'm sure it exists now. Toronto's a big city, much bigger city than when I grew up. But, you know, I don't even understand. I can't fathom what people are thinking when you can look at another human being and think this other human being is worth any less than yourself. I don't understand that.
Howie, you've been, during this thing, you've been doing wonderful TikToks. I like those. And you've also had some chats with people online, but do you see anyone other than your wife? Have you had any actual interactions with anyone other than that?
Yeah, I have, well, weird interactions. I have, you know, I have 3 children who are adults, and they live on their own. They're married, and I have grandchildren. So in order to see my grandchildren, the apples didn't fall really far from the tree. My kids are as neurotic as I am, so I'm not allowed into the grandchildren's house. So we go over early in the morning, and I climb a tree, and I look in the window at my grandkids. It's kind of like a weird zoo.
How big is that? How tall is the tree?
I'll measure it and get back to you, but I'm up to like the second floor, and I look in the window, and I could tap at the window, and then they come to the window and they see. I don't know if I'm scarring these children, that they're going to have an image of they woke up early in the morning and Papa was in the tree every morning. So that's how I see it.
You know, like my grandmother's 98, and she's in a special assisted living place, and she actually got COVID-19 and then recovered. And she actually seems, I've got to be honest, she seems like she's in a better mood now, but we haven't seen her forever. And I just think if we go over there and stand outside the window, she's just going to be like, what is going on? Like, this is, you know, it's like a bad Stanley Kubrick movie. And so I haven't even dared to do that. But you know, we have 2 kids, and it's sad to watch. They've had a couple friends come over across the street, and they just talk to each other.
We've had a couple parades, a birthday parade.
Right.
Yeah, birthday. Everything's a parade now.
And what do you do? I know that I have to say, I also find that adults, so we put together videos for people or have a parade for people, but we're celebrating people who are grown up, and actually we shouldn't be celebrating. When I turn 50, I'm a grown up. I don't need a big celebration. I don't need 100 people, everyone I've ever known, driving down the street. So maybe that's a little crazy.
Holding up signs that you're 50.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great for the kids, but it seems like every day it's like, oh, can you make a video? Can you do a song? Can you come by? It's overwhelming. I didn't go to this many birthday parties when there wasn't a worldwide pandemic, right?
I've actually done more during the pandemic than I do at any, like, I don't know what, like in this time period, in the 10 weeks, I've done more appearances on more TV shows in this short amount of time, you know, with Zoom and Instagram and this, than I've ever done before. I've been more productive, but busier in kind of a weird way. I go so many places and do so many things without pants. It's just been horrific.
Well, I'm glad you're not wearing pants now.
Be comfortable.
What do you do about food? Does it get delivered to you? Do you wash it?
No,
What do you do?
my wife has been cooking, and I talked about this too. She got a little upset, but she's not a good cook. And I've actually lost 15 pounds. She's a horrible cook. But here's the bright side. I wanted to create, and it'll be Howie Mandel's wife's cookbook. And it's all these recipes. She thinks it's a recipe book, and we'll sell it as a cookbook. But I'm telling you online, buy it, you'll lose 15 pounds in 10 weeks. If you eat whatever she cooks.
There's not a single thing that's like her thing. And you go, oh, good, you're making that tonight. No?
Something I've been married for 40 years. That's something you've never heard uttered in our home. Oh, good.
I was in like I'm sorry. What did you say, Howie?
Unless it was reservations. Oh, good. You're making that tonight.
I once was in it was like in the middle of the country, and they had like a old place where people were playing banjos and singing, and they had like a cookbook for sale, and I picked it up, and it was just like, take the cream of 5 Twinkies, mix it with 16 crumbled up Oreos and Velveeta. It was just only processed items that let me look at the questions here. We've probably got a few more questions here. I like one of them's in another language. Let's see.
I'm happy to answer it in another language.
Yeah. Your name is an incredible experience. Ballet shoes, Grey's Anatomy. Did any of these ring a bell to you? Mean anything to you?
Well, I don't think I was on St. Elsewhere.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But, I guess Grey's Bones,
Bones.
Let's see. Do you have, who are comedians that you love from today that you see? Do you see a lot of new comedy?
Well, today, I mean, I like the same people that everybody loves. Dave Chappelle right now, because I just think he's honest. My hero in stand-up comedy in the the late 70s and 80s when I came out here, I'd go to the Comedy Store every night and I would see Richard Pryor live on stage putting together his Live on Sunset Strip film. So I watched that. I watched him cobble that together. And there's no way you could put Howie Mandel and Richard Pryor in the same sentence ever. But I aspire. He really moved me in the sense that it was the first time I was aware. I'm not a student of comedy. I told you it was just an accident getting on. But it was the first time knowing comics and watching them on the Tonight Show. I thought people had material and they were writing. And I was a huge Rodney Dangerfield fan. But this was the first time where I became really aware that he was like speaking the truth. And if you took away all the funny intonations of his voice, I mean, here's a young man who was raised in a brothel, had drug problems, relationship problems, and made this all relatable and entertaining. And I thought, wow, this is so bold and so brave. And so as I knew that I wanted to get into comedy, I thought, I've never seen something this real and this raw before. I've never experienced that. The closest I've come to it is, if I'd listened to a musician being interviewed on TV and asking what a song's about, and they're going to say, but I lost a girlfriend. I never heard anybody really, or I never really understood what a joke was about. But he was talking about his upbringing and in the streets and characters and different things that I thought, oh my God, like if you really take away all the comedy and all the rich, this is really a tragic story. But then I realized the melding together of, that's why you see those two masks of tragedy and comedy are really close together. And he kind of opened, and then I was watching him experiment every night and write things down and then come back the next night and he would flip it around. There'd be a couple of words that were different. And I watched him hone it and craft it. And that was the biggest, nobody has moved me more in any art form than Richard Pryor did, watching him put together. He's a wordsmith and he was just brilliant.
You opened for Letterman when Letterman was a stand-up. And Letterman always talks about how terrible he was as a stand-up. Do you remember anything about his act or what he was saying?
I loved it. When I started the Comedy Store, he was the host. So he was the MC. More than his act, because I remember like little things. I remember certain jokes he had, like the little gobs of toothpaste that got caught in the sink. I'm not doing it David justice, but he used to put them out as mints for guests. But so there were funny things, and he's funny and witty. what was amazing about him, and he still has it, is that just that laissez-faire kind of attitude.
Yeah.
And he already had that attitude. And even when he thought it wasn't going well, there was something that was good. That's what made him, you know. I just think I loved him, and the audience loved him because he draws you in, because he was the anti, you know, even as a talk show host, you know, it was a big deal that he showed up in late night wearing a suit, but khakis and sneakers. You know, I think that's indicative of how he was perceived. You know what I mean? He was always like just bucking the system. So it wasn't so much the jokes and the material as much as who he is and how he portrayed it.
There was, yeah, because that before he came along, the whole idea was Johnny Carson, which was that nothing could be more important and nothing could be a higher achievement than getting a chance to host a late night talk show. And Letterman's idea was that nothing is more ridiculous than what we're doing here, right? And that sort of like becomes Conan O'Brien and a little bit of Kimmel and a little bit.
Well, he was the first kind of meta act, but you know, I also was aware of what's his name? I'm blanking now, but Ernie Kovacs.
Ernie Kovacs, yeah. Ernie Kovacs, that's a good one. I never even knew who Ernie Kovacs was because I'm 49. But then I started watching some of his clips on you know, whatever, maybe it was on Netflix or Amazon, I don't know. And it was so interesting to me how close the thing where he, you know, basically how he would go up to the camera and check his teeth. He was just wasting time, right?
Yeah, but it was the first time I think Letterman, he might be a hero of Letterman's. I've never heard Letterman really speak of him, but he was also took the medium and kind of had fun with the medium, as opposed to this is the medium and then this is me and this is what I'm going to do. You know, he was playing with it and having fun with it. And you know, and I felt like Letterman's show was a great homage to Ernie Kovacs, you know.
The last stand-up I'll ask you about is because it's the guy who's in Canada as well, Norm Macdonald.
Love him.
You love Norm Macdonald?
I know him and I love him and I adore him. He is, but again, I like these people who are authentic. That's who Norm is, you know. Norm is that character. Norm, and as much as he's really funny, funny things happen to him in his life off stage that become amazing stories. You might know the story about him and Bill Cosby, meeting Bill Cosby.
No, tell me that story. I don't know.
Quick. So this is when he was on Saturday Night Live, and I won't do it justice. He's done this. You should Google him telling the Bill Cosby story on the Tonight Show, because he'll tell this 10 times better than I do. But Bill Cosby was on the Saturday Night Live, you know, and Norm was on there, and Norm went up to him and told him that the reason he got into comedy was because his father was a huge Bill Cosby fan. And every time Bill Cosby was on, you know, Sullivan or wherever he was, him and his son, this was their bonding thing. And this is what he loved, the comedy. And he just said, and Bill Cosby says to him, "Where are you from?" And he goes, "I'm from Ottawa." And he goes, "Well, I'll tell you something. I'm on tour. When I'm in Ottawa, why don't we bring your dad to the show?" And Norm says, "Great. That is so nice." And they go on and they do the show. So here's what happened. Norm, in the midst of this conversation, didn't want to mention, just such a nice, uplifting meeting and nice conversation. Norm didn't tell him that his father had passed like 3 years earlier.
Yeah.
But why bring down the conversation and say, you know, my father's dead? So life goes on, and about 3 weeks later, there's a phone call at his office at SNL, and they say, "Norm, Bill Cosby's on the phone. Bill Cosby's on the phone for you." Bill Cosby? Why is Bill Cosby? Bill Cosby calls him and says, "Hey, listen, Norm, I'm in Ottawa. Give me your dad's number. I'll phone him, and we'll bring him down to the show." Oh. Because he doesn't know how to get out of that. So he gives him a phone number, like a fake phone number, figuring that's it, and hangs the phone and goes, "I can't do that." Half hour later, Bill Cosby's on the phone. "What? You got the wrong number." He goes, "I got the wrong number." I call get another one, and he tried to make it like he didn't have. I don't remember. You got to watch Bill. I don't want to do this. I'm not doing this story.
You're doing it pretty good justice. It's exactly like Norm Macdonald, right?
And because it really happened to Norm, it is so much better from Norm.
Yeah.
But he never told Bill Cosby, that it was the wrong number and that his father was dead. And then one thing leads to another, and Bill Cosby's now in prison.
Right, exactly. One thing I covered. They had me cover one of the last shows of that tour. Because if you remember what happened, is all that stuff came out, and then he was still out. He was like still touring, and it was such a bizarre thing to see. Because I remember I went to Florida, and I interviewed a bunch of people who were going to the show, and it was like older ladies, and they were like, "Oh, who hasn't done that?" And I was like, "No, no, no. What do you mean?" And they're like, "Oh, you're older." I'm like, "No. Like raping someone is different than like being a creepy older fella, Right. But then like 8 months later, he was playing Baltimore, and we went to that show too. And the fact is, even at the end, he could still pack in like 1,000 people, and there would be a protest by like 2 or 3 people, and then the other people would be like, "Shut up, we just want to see the show." It was very, I believe if he was out, he'd still be touring. It wouldn't be.
What a sad statement about the world we live in right now, and that's why what's going on for most people is okay. And that's why there's people on here saying Corona is fake, and that's why that's the world.
Well, Howie, you know what I learned when newspapers started putting comment things at the end of your stories, and crazy conversations would spread out of them. I actually sometimes will go on to those conversations, and I'll answer questions or say things, because I find that most of the time with internet culture, it's just that people don't understand there's a real person somewhere involved in here. And when you answer your phone sometimes, and someone was trying to leave you an angry message or protesting something, and they get you, suddenly they talk differently. And most times, except for the real crazy people, you can talk people out of their harshness. It doesn't mean they're going to agree with you, but you can actually start a conversation. But these comments, some of them are very nice, but some of them are just.
But
random.
I'm saying the people that are, I think that a lot of these people, I don't know how much they even believe what they're writing, but they know they're trolling. I'm answering, and I'm just kidding that Corona is fake. See, the guy just came on there. And so the point is that if you say something outrageous or you say something terrible, you have a better chance of getting you on the line for a conversation than if you just go, "Oh, this is nice, this is informative," or "I enjoy your articles," or "I like your writing," or "I like your comments."
Well, I always find it weird. I always find it odd. Like Mark Maron is a good example of this. If someone goes on his Twitter feed and they attack him, and they have like a name like Tractor Pull 7, and they only have like 7 followers, he will still get right in there and fight back. And I feel like some fights you just let go, it's just not working.
But it's also content, for whatever, for any of us, it's content. So you get in there and you fight, and it's sometimes fun. But the problem is that it's kind of dangerous, to give these trolls a stage. The point is, if whoever they're targeting, whether it's Mark or whether it's you or whether it's me, as soon as you may have the intention of maybe changing their mind or giving them real information, but more importantly, you're kind of opening up their ignorance to a wider audience than they had.
Well, you're a good person, and I wonder if there are times when, because I have a rule, which is when I'm angry or upset about something and I open up my email to punch something out, I never put the name in the thing. I just write it out, and then I wait. And then I usually delete it before I even send it. I just feel like it's too easy to have a knee-jerk reaction. And I never say stuff politically on Twitter. What's the point? I'm the national arts reporter. Like,
right.
do your job. So I don't know if you have ways of preventing things like that from happening, but if you sent out some kind of blistering response or said something incredibly abrasive, you could get in trouble, right?
I don't respond, number one, and because I'll get in trouble. And, there's a yin and a yang to all that, because, today we can get in more. When I started in comedy, when I was watching Richard Pryor, there was a very different world. And today, political correctness and everybody's sensitivity and how hyped we are on whatever side we're on has become such a big issue that one line or one point of view can lose you your job. What I loved about when I bring it back to Richard Pryor is, you know, he wanted to see where that line was and then cross over it. And then if he lost the audience or whatever, we didn't have phones and people weren't holding up in recording and telling, and didn't have a way to message anybody else who wasn't there something maybe out of context. So now it's really tough. I can't tell you
I
that.
think Chappelle is like that still. I think
He
he's one
takes
of
away the phones though.
Yeah, but I mean, I think he's one of those that will. But it's interesting you say that, because I think about that famous skit, which we're not going to recreate it, but the one with Chevy Chase and Richard Pryor on the first season of Saturday Night Live, and you just can't do that skit right now. You just wouldn't do it today, right? And
Right.
Even something simple like, you know, news for the hard of hearing. Remember Garrett Morris yelling in Chevy Chase's ear?
Yelling.
I'm sorry, I just gave you 2 Chevy Chase ones, but there's a guy who I think was so incredible, but, you know, complicated and everything. But you just can't do those anymore. The society has changed in some way.
Not only has society changed, but that stuff that was done there and then, like you're talking about Chevy Chase. If Chevy Chase was on a platform right now, a national platform, if he had a series, if Community was going right now and Chevy was on that, I promise you those things would be re-dragged up, would be aired here on Instagram, and there would be a hashtag get rid of Chevy.
Or there was, you know, he did blackface. He was in Fletch, right?
Right.
So that's another one. Hey, we're not.
Nothing.
I have to
Right.
ask you: do you still? And I'm sorry, do you still have another house that you live in when people get sick in your house, or no?
No, all my kids moved out, so it's just me and my wife. So I have another room I can go to if she sneezes.
Can I show the old house you had, or no? Can I? Yeah. Because what I found amazing about that house is, like, most of us think of like a second house that would be in the back. I thought it was like a little writing shack. But this was your second house, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it had like a swing out there. I mean, this house is nicer than most first houses.
Yeah. You don't think I deserve that?
I'm not saying that. I thought like a little second house you just go into for a couple of days.
Well, if he is sick and they're going to be down for a week, I need some luxury. I was in the house. My wife would call and say, "Where are you?" "I'm home." "Where are you?" "You're in your home and you're sick."
I think it's I think it's a great public service that you're so open about what you've dealt with for 64 years. But also, I think, you know, your family obviously was so supportive and understanding, and didn't, you know, I mean, I think about Henry Winkler, who has dyslexia, and I remember reading about how his, you know, in the 50s when he was struggling in school, his dad would just say, you know, you're an idiot. You know, what's wrong with you? And just, you know, and the fact that your family was so patient, because it probably was maddening for them at times, you know, having to turn around.
Maddening, but it also gave them opportunities. Like my brother and I have a younger brother, who's 3 years old. We're very close. I talk to him every day. But when he wanted to, you know, fight me, there was nobody even, when you think about it now, I think, why did everybody just accept this? He would take the lid of the laundry hamper and just chase me around the house. I mean, who does that? You know, but they knew. Well, they all knew that I was an open germaphobe to my family, but they just thought I was like wacky. But they're not going to take me to a doctor for that. And we're not going to go to a psychologist. In the 50s and 60s, you would be locked away, you know, so that we dealt with it. I dealt with it and I survived with it. And they loved me. They accepted it, but I didn't know it was an issue.
Howie, we've got about a minute, and I want you to tell people what you suggest they do to cope with this shutdown, lockdown, the issue with this virus floating through the air, terrifying us. Tell us.
Answer.
Please give us the 7 keys to how we can get through this. Or 4 or 1.
Talking. You know, if you have an issue, you can still reach out, even though we're locked down. Look at me. I'm on Instagram. There's telephones or whatever. Talk to people you love, people you know, caregivers, whatever it takes to do that. Distraction, number 2. And whether the distraction is taking one puzzle piece away from your significant, don't think about what, and just try to stay physically healthy. And I just think we need help. We really are all in this together. And even talking to you today is comforting to me. It really is. It gives me something to do. Otherwise, I'd be sitting quietly in another room, worried about, you know, what's floating in the air, as you. So you put it. You made it a little scarier than I was. The way you described our world.
Well, I'm in this barn all the time, Howie. So anytime you want to talk, I'm here, and I'm grateful that you gave me and our audience a break today. Really, it means a lot.
I wish everybody, health, happiness, and respect. Please respect everyone.
Wait, your damn show. We should promote it. America's Got Talent, and tell us exactly when it's on and what network. I don't watch any TV these days.
Tuesdays NBC at 8:00 Eastern. And it is a great respite from all this. I think that's the panacea. You will see people who are going through things, who rise to the occasion. It's a great panel. Heidi Klum is back. Sofia Vergara is sitting there. Simon Cowell, Terry Crews. And you will see, it'll just make you smile. It's
Thank
the greatest.
you, Howie. Thank you for coming here. And we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.